Okay, so even though I'll see both their faces, I'll know the frame, and then you'll switch the frames.
You're
Okay.
on. I'm not going to be able to do that. You guys are just going to have to.
Oh,
That's. This is what you got.
am I on right now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, hello, everybody. Good evening. I did not know I was live. Welcome, and thank you for joining in with us. I know that everybody is probably had a wild 2 days. I think it's a theme of 2020, sitting in uncertainty and anxiety. So with that said, if you haven't tuned in before, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Lauren Fisher, and I am a licensed clinical psychologist, but I am the host of the Wellness Wednesday on behalf of the Wellness District of the Delray Business Association. So, the Wellness District is a group of pretty awesome self-proclaimed health and wellness professionals in the Delray area of Alexandria. And we're very, very dedicated to the community. So my purpose here is to connect you with some of our experts and resources and get information to you to help you live your life with more ease. So tonight, I'm very excited to have two wonderful guests, women who are leaders in the community and experts in their own right. And we figured it'd be very timely to do a family-focused power hour. So we could probably talk for hours, but we're going to try to hit some of the hot topics that are pressing. So for a large majority of the time, our second guest, Dr. Amy Fortney Parks, child and adolescent psychologist and Alexandria native, is going to talk all about family, COVID, stress, mental health, school. But before that, I was, special guest, very appreciative to have Michelle Millben pop on. I'm going to invite her on the screen in a second. Michelle is the founder of Explanation Kids, which is a education and technology startup platform that helps children helps parents or school teachers and other people explain to kids tough questions about issues and events in our country, from events to politics. And so I'm going to let her explain that better. But Michelle, prior to being a founder, has had a history in the government. She was in the White House as special assistant to President of the Office of Legislative Affairs for President Obama. She's been an advisor to the Congress and Department of Justice. In her free time, she's a minister, is on several boards in our community, also sings. So I don't know when she sleeps, but she is a woman that is very dedicated to our community. And I am very glad to have met both of these women in the last year, immediately like them. And I knew that they were good people who really care about our community. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Michelle on. Hey there, Michelle. Welcome.
I'm not hearing her. I'm not seeing her go out.
Stand by. We're just wondering if they can see you.
No, we can hear. She's okay. There we go.
Okay, we're good to go now. Michelle, I've got to say, you're looking pretty amazing and bright right now for the fact that you told me you've only had 3 hours of sleep.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm sorry. We're not getting their sound. We can hear it, but we can't. We can't. I can't get Skype to come into the software. I'm dreadfully sorry. We may have to bag it.
I mean, I am glad and I'm very appreciative. And honestly, Michelle, thank you for you. I know you're among one of the many thousands who worked tirelessly to make sure that everyone had and to protect the integrity of our democratic process. So thank you. All right, so let's get into it. Can you tell me? Can we still not hear Michelle?
I don't know. She needs to speak.
Michelle, can you speak again?
No, I'm sorry.
Well, they're getting closed captions, so
Okay.
at least. All right, Michelle, we're gonna go with the closed captions. Okay, so um, can you please tell us about Explanation Kids?
It's not keeping. I know. It's totally blown up on me. It's not going to work.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I also work for the Department of Justice, and my job is literally as a lawyer has mostly been not just around providing advice to members of Congress and the president, but also bringing people together who think differently. When you have policy
Mm-hmm.
objectives, bills, legislation, you've got to find a way to make sure that everybody can get on board because it's not just your member voting, it's not just your party voting. And so I realized because I had that skill of really working well with people and bringing people together who think differently. I'm not a child
A little
psychologist,
bit.
never taught in a classroom, but maybe I could find those people and bring them together. And that's what we've done now with Explanation Kids. So we're creating content and curriculum for schools and for parents on a web based application that does just that, does all the work for parents. So you stop the soul crushing Googling. And also, too, you can find credible information on demand in the classroom for teachers and at home for families. And so we're grateful that at least in this world now where we're dealing with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
misinformation, disinformation, especially in the election season, parents won't feel like they're left alone.
Yeah, Michelle, that's wonderful. I mean, it sounds like a very important time to be doing this work. And this is new to me. I haven't heard or come across many organizations that have been doing this, and I guess that's probably why you started it. So, can you, with what you know and your research and what you've been doing, can you help us understand a little bit about what you've been communicating to parents about in regards to the election and how to talk to them about the interesting process we've been having, if you will?
Yeah, well, we actually have our newsletter coming out on Friday on the election. So we just knew that with everything leading up to the elections, a lot of parents already feel stressed and
Mm-hmm.
feel a lot of anxiety. And we found that because we already kind of could discern too, the election just wasn't going to be called that night. Like when we were kids, we always got the election results kind of
Right.
that night or the next day. We said we'll just make sure by the end of the week, families can really talk this through and then have resources available that talk about what do presidents actually do? What does the Constitution say they can do? What is the Electoral College? Why do we have debates? And also, we have a cute little election with our cartoon characters, Lena, Oliver, and Violet. They're holding their own election where they're trying to get their dog, their cat, or their
Oh,
goldfish
I love that.
elected. So the kids get to vote for that too. But the way we've been really trying to approach this is the same way we've been approaching all of our COVID content,
Mm-hmm.
all of our content on policing, on race, on immigration. The parents are already dealing with a lot of these issues. And
Mm-hmm.
so the way we try to approach this since COVID started, we've shifted to really reaching out to more parents than just schools, is strengthening communication. We can't shield things from kids that are hard. It's just not possible anymore because kids are paying attention and they can come to their own conclusions. And if we don't give them a
Mm-hmm.
space to ask questions, then we really can be leaving them in some really tough spaces. And kids have questions about George Floyd's death. They have questions about all these new processes of you must wash your hands, you've got to wear a mask, you can't see your friends. All of these things are really things that we should be sitting with our kids. And so what we do in our content and our curriculum is we use animation to make it fun so that it's not scary when you're talking about the scary stuff. We also provide parents with talking points and kind of questions that give an assessment so that when you're sitting with your kid and you're really sitting with them in their feelings, not just saying, okay, don't feel like that. This is how we should feel. No, we let them sit with them in their feelings. And then you can ask questions like, okay, how do we know if this is true? What do you know about that? I'd love to learn more. Let's learn together. We really try to provide parents with the feeling and teachers that they don't have to have all the answers, and that what kids really need is just to know that someone cares and someone's there to listen. So over the summer, that's what we've done, is in that on our content made sure that was kind of our framework structure. And with elections as well, we'll be doing the same, because the thing we try to do in bringing people together that think differently, a lot of people cast ballots for different folks, not just for the president, all the way down the ballot in their local elections. But that doesn't mean we're not still a community. And so we try to find those touch points and places to bring people together to find agreement. And it doesn't mean we all agree. It's just we want to understand each other.
Right. That sounds awesome. And I want to reinforce the point you said there about the importance of creating a safe space for the children to be able to express their emotions and ask questions. And I think it's equally as important for the parents to be asking the children questions as well about what they know. Because you're right, kids pick up everything. There's access to information everywhere. Unfortunately, not positive and negative, but especially they hear things, they pick up things, they see what the parents are talking about or hear what parents are talking about. So, and depending on the the age, and our child psychologist can talk to this later, but some children are going to over exaggerate those, overestimate the danger. So the anxiety can be really high, and they might be carrying that without actually saying anything. And I think you had an example of that, Michelle, when we talked. Would you mind sharing that story about the deportation and that young child?
Yeah, so Dr. Lacey Hilliard, who's one of our advisors here for Explanation Kids, she's a professor of child psychology at Suffolk University. We were looking through case studies of big questions kids were asking around the country. And one of the things we found was a story that the president of the National Education Association had shared about a child who had gone to class each day and was carrying a lot of things, fearful because they had learned that someone in their community had their parent deported. And that child internalized it. They thought, well, I better bring all my stuff in case they come from my parents. And if you think about what teachers are even dealing with in classrooms right now, of how they field these questions in front of their students, we have to really think about teachers are really carrying a lot of weight for our communities, not just as educators, but they're therapists, and they are repositories of kids' big feelings. Those were kind of, and that teacher, by the way, handled it really, really well from what we understood. There are also situations where teachers are really leaning on their own political leanings, and that can be fearful, scary for parents. If you send your child to a classroom and then a teacher hasn't been trained or doesn't know about emotional regulation or frustration tolerance, and so instead starts putting their own belief systems out there. If you Google, there's some scary stories from Florida where teachers were telling kids that they had to believe certain things that were not factually true, and they were putting the kids kind of down for not believing the things they believe politically. We don't want that in classrooms, and so that's what we also provide as training. But in classrooms, teachers really are able to find the skills when it comes, especially co-regulation, of being able to help kids have a safe place and a safe environment in a classroom to feel comfortable to ask questions and to learn together as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, one of my friends asked a question, building off of that, about, and feel free to let me know what your opinions are, if this is inside the scope, but essentially, she said there's so many sensitive topics around this election, and she said, how do we communicate with the children when we're holding so much anxiety ourselves, that we want to be able to be honest and address and acknowledge the emotions, but not increase their anxiety?
That's
What
right.
tips do you have?
There's a couple things I would definitely share. That's a great question too. I think this is a question everyone's asking about. How do we not, proactively create anxiety for our kids? And then if our kids already have concerns, how do we not make their concerns not feel important? Dr. Stuart Avalon, who is one of also our partners here with Explanation Kids, he's the head of a program called Think Kids at Massachusetts General Hospital, which I have the honor of also serving on the advisory board there as well at the hospital with Think Kids. But one thing he talks about is for parents to have a proactive plan about empathy. And empathy is a word that's kind of everyone's using these days. But what it really means, it doesn't mean that you have to get your kids to agree with you, or you've got to sit them down and indoctrinate them. What it basically means is that you want to pursue an opportunity to understand. And I think not just from parenting, this can play out with our neighbors too. We have neighbors who maybe had a Trump sign in their front yard and the other one had a Biden sign, or one had a Warner sign and the other had, and forgive me, I don't remember the person running against Warner, but they had the Republicans in their yard. But how do we find ways to really make sure we're seeking to understand? I think the first thing we would definitely encourage folks to do, which Dr. Hilliard would definitely underscore, is when you get to those big questions, think about what you did before. So when COVID happened and your kid came to you, what did you do before then, and how did it go? Think about what you did maybe when George Floyd was murdered and we all watched that horrific video. Sometimes parents have to give themselves a little credit that they are doing a great job. And just so you know, these skills we've been talking about frustration tolerance and flexibility and problem solving, right now that the pandemic and all we're going through are putting all of our skills on blast. And now think of kids who are also now having to put those skills into place where it's this whole situation, the election just making all of us kind of be exposed of where we are. But I think the big we try to encourage parents is to think about what you did before. You probably did right, and then if not, find some ways to think about how you can really remember that your kids are can't just, but always giving them a chance to feel like you're providing assurance and addressing their questions. And what do? Is sitting with them and whatever their feelings are. And maybe even saying things like, I wish things were different too. Or let's talk about that. What do you think we can do to make a difference? When you engage kids in that way, it gives them a chance to practice those skills. Now, if you were decent in those skills, as Dr. Avalon would say, you're getting tapped out right now. But if you had any weaknesses, then we're all, again, like being exposed. But because kids have been forced to with, Zoom calls now for school, virtual learning, they're having to be superstars now in those skills. But one thing he says is this: kids do well if they can, and that means we do well if we can. If your kid's not giving you the responses you need, or if they're really concerned or anxious, at the end of the day, there's probably something getting in the way of them being able to perform those skills, just like for us it would as well. And so empathy, I go back to that, is so important, to listen hard to understand your kids' concerns and hear what they think and collaborate with them before you say, well, this is the way it is, or this is how I think it is. Collaborate with them before you let them run down your own thoughts. And so I just say, I end with Dr. Avalon's statement of just, we all do well when we can, but I think we do better when we can sit together, listen, make sure kids feel like they're addressed and assured, and more importantly, finding ways to collaborate. And by saying, let's think about this together, let's work on this together, or what do you think we can do? It gives kids, the word I would use is agency, letting them know they actually have a say in maybe how this conversation can go. They have a little say in how things can go. That, I feel, is what we try to purport to help calm some of the anxieties that we keep presenting, but also to make homes a more collaborative space for kids too.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Everybody just wants to be heard, heard and acknowledged in a safe way. I love everything you had to say. Thank you for sharing your insights and your work, and thank you for the work that you're doing across the board. Can you, Michelle, just tell, I know that you are working with larger systems, but for any of the parents that are listening right now, did you mention a newsletter? Is there a way in which they could connect with some of the great information you have?
Absolutely. So when we have our official launch, schools will all have access. Right now, we are honored to partner with Alexandria City Public Schools. When we first decided to jump out and say, okay, let's figure out if this is a real problem and what are the needs of schools and parents. We were so glad ACPS jumped on as a partner. But when the pandemic hit, we realized parents really need some help here. So we started a newsletter. All you got to do is go to explanationkids.com. That's www.explanationkids.com. Scroll to the bottom and put in your email address and your name, and you'll automatically be fed into our listserv, which then you'll be able to get our newsletter. In our newsletter, we provide our own original content. So sometimes it's animation, sometimes it's fact-based information that we've curated, or sometimes it's talking points for parents to share on a major hot topic. And then also, too, we provide resources so that if you need to have further conversations or just educate yourself, it's all compiled into one course there for parents and teachers, too.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on. I hope that you get some sleep tonight, maybe a little bit.
No, Lauren, thank you for doing this. I know there's so many folks who are concerned about the election, but I do appreciate that you're always creating spaces for folks to really be thoughtful and come together, and that means a lot. So thanks for letting me be a part of this.
You're welcome. Take care.
Take care.
Okay. All right. Well, We're going to move right over to Dr. Amy Parks here, Dr. Amy Fortney Parks of Wise Family. And Amy, you may have some of your thoughts to piggyback on what Michelle said, as you are our child and adolescent psychologist in the area. But I just want to give a little introduction of you first. I'm very grateful to have come across Amy within this last year. She has quickly become a great colleague and a good friend as well. Amy is true Alexandrian's, been here for several years, your whole life, I believe. And I didn't say any years. And, has been an educator, a psychologist, a jack of all trades. She was at the Alexandria Drive-In, handing out flyers the other day. She is a woman of the community and has been very helpful to us. So my hope tonight is that we're going to hit on some important topics. We'd love to hear some questions too. I'm going to try to do two things at once and watch the Facebook feed so we can answer those questions. But for those who are not familiar with you, Amy, can you just tell us a little bit about your practice and your history and what your special powers are?
my special powers. Absolutely, Lauren. Well, first of all, have we really only known each other for a year? Because it seems like forever. So I think that's really funny. I didn't really realize it's only been a year, but gosh.
Maybe
you
less.
know some of my deepest, darkest secrets, and we only know each other for a year. What does that mean? But yeah, you're right. I've lived in Alexandria my entire life. In fact, on a daily basis, I walk on the same sidewalk that I learned to walk on. So that's a pretty exciting legacy in the city of Alexandria, and I'm really proud to be here and to be a part of the community. And I'm really excited that you're doing this show. So congratulations to you, and thank you so much for the honor of being here and sharing some things with the community. Michelle is amazing. So I 100% agree with everything that she said. And I'm so thrilled that a team of people have really taken on the responsibility of, talking about tough things with kids. So I own a group therapy practice. We have 3 offices. One is in Alexandria, one is in Arlington, and one is in Winchester. And our practice is called the Wise Family. And we just support children, teens, parents, and families. That's all we do. And we're experts at working with those demographics and have been in practice as a group for about 10 years. And prior to that, as you said, I worked in Fairfax County Public Schools as a school psychologist and a school counselor. So I've been around quite a while. And I also do some teaching at GW University, and I do some clinical consulting at Dominion Hospital. So yeah, I really kind of have surrounded myself with lots of kids and families. But my biggest claim to fame is that I have 4 kids of my own, 20 to 27, and a grandson. So yeah, we're pretty busy. Yes. And but we really believe in the power of family, and these tough conversations that Michelle's talking about are so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's good to walk the walk and have the children and have gone through a lot of these experiences so you're able to relate. I think something that's important also that's unique about your practice, at least from my perspective, is your educational background being a school psychologist. While there's many people that are child psychologists, I was in my former life, aka 10 years ago, before I realized adults were really where, my passion and expertise laid. But I say that because having that school background, you work really closely with schools, so you have this great understanding of the needs. So for children being able to work closely with schools, correct?
Yeah, we really, so to work with kids and teens, you have to be willing to be on the floor a lot, which we really love that, and really use a play-based approach. And that comes from the years that I spent in schools. So we really believe very strongly in sort of what we call the trifecta, which is the family, the school, and the counselor. So this relationship that we can create between the 3 of us allows us to really be able to support the child in this really 360 way. Children spend 80% of their time in school. Now, of course, right now they're spending 80% of their time in school at home. But the point is that that school environment is very much a driver for everything that they are learning and observing and absorbing. And so to help the family and then us all three work together is a really powerful combination.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the trends that you are seeing. What clients are seeking out right now for services? And I'm not sure if it differs too much from what was before, but I'm imagining you're seeing some new things given the constant changing circumstances of 2020. I think Michelle had said it pretty well that like skills of adaptability, flexibility, new problem solving is a kind of really the theme of the things that are getting practiced whether we want to or not. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this as sort of a blessing and a curse. And I do think that we're seeing some unique situations now that we haven't seen before. I mean, generally our practice sees a lot of children and teens who are dealing with anxiety, problematic behaviors, both at home and at school, relationships with peers, family relationships, and those kind of things. But more than ever now, curiously, we're seeing more of teenage eating disorders we're seeing problems with. We're seeing significant increase in worry in kids, and we're seeing more self-injury. And so that's really worrisome because a lot of those behaviors and a lot of those situations come from this fear of the unknown that we're all experiencing. And for kids, the difference is they haven't had 25, 30, 40, 50 years of normalizing opportunities and moments of fear. And so they don't really have a language to put behind those feelings, and they're not used to being able to carry those big feelings. There's actually sort of a muscle lift. There's a lift that's required to be able to carry heavy stuff for kids. And think of how much we as adults are suffering and struggling right now. Kids have this, much harder in terms of trying to normalize and sort of balance themselves and have some ease in this experience.
Yeah, so it's a really great point of not having the longevity of life experiences to know that you can get through things and be resilient. So you're right, there's such an important role for the parents to play here to hold that, to see what's happening, to hold that space and to help them, which is really challenging because they are going through so much themselves. And I think that at least the people I know and my clients, like, it's been really hard trying to figure out how to be everything to everybody at once, which is impossible, right? So we're trying to do the best that we can. But your emotional, I tend to work with adults and people who are parents, but, trying to figure out how to get a grasp on your emotional well-being so you can show up for your for your children. Sorry. So, Amy.
Well, yeah, and I mean that speaks to what Michelle was saying in that, being able to answer kids' questions and being comfortable saying, we don't really know what's going to happen. We could try to think of all the possibilities. Let's think of all the possibilities, but we don't know what's going to happen. And being okay with that uncertainty is critical for children because they need structure. And you know what? We think that teens kind of have it together, but the fact of the matter is they don't have any more experience either. And so, and on top of that, for teens, they're also in a developmental phase of this individuation. So there's constant push and pull, and there's so much dynamic with their peers that, they don't even have the bandwidth to be able to sometimes figure stuff out and think things through critically. So being able to have those conversations, the tough conversations with kids and teens is really, really important.
Well, and realizing that you don't need to fix it, right? You don't always need to fix the problem. And we tend to be fixers around here.
In fact, well, first of all, I really try to encourage people not to think about the idea of something being broken, because fixing means it's broken. And that's not the case. I mean, the issue is that, yeah, of course, we try to fix a lot of things and we try to make things smoother and put that big, what is it, that advertisement on TV where the person wraps themselves in Charmin toilet paper, so they're cushioned from any pain. And we try to do that as parents, but it doesn't serve our children to create those kinds of scenarios of safety. Structure and strong conversations, good communication. I mean, those are really the keys, and allowing kids to really think critically through problems and recover on their own to some extent is probably the best thing that we can be doing for kids right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, Sherman, about trying to, keep children safe or not feeling emotion. I think also, too, people are really skilled at avoiding emotion in general. So I kind of laugh.
Yeah, and especially right now, it's really kind of funny, too, Lauren, you asked about, like, what are the biggest presenting concerns, like what's happening right now. So something that's really fascinating, we were so surprised in our practice. We've gotten so many referrals, families calling us who are saying, in a normal year, I wouldn't be calling about this, but my son's teacher has always been saying that there's been this problem at school, and I don't actually ever see it because they're at school and I don't see it at home. But now that they're doing their schoolwork from home, I totally get what they're talking about, and we need help. Yeah. And so I think it's kind of interesting to realize that, now parents are really having an opportunity to see behaviors and strategy and learning issues that they really haven't even maybe noticed before or been able to acknowledge before, and really seeking out help. So we've seen a lot of kids with behavior issues that have never really come up before. That's been great.
Yeah, I'm imagining people are noticing a lot about each other when you are spending a lot of time. You get to know your husband real well, and your children, right? And either relationships have really strengthened or they've really struggled. It is easy to be busy and doing our own thing and avoid or minimize or not see what's going on. So I think this is where that blessing and curse comes back in, as you said, that there is such opportunity. I know people hate this, but I love it. I mean, there's opportunity for such emotional growth and well-being by like sitting, feeling your emotions, finding your way through. I always joke when people realize if they feel their emotions and they don't suppress them or numb them, like, I'm going to be out of business, If you feel them and right? But if you feel them and don't react to them or don't attach, and soothe, you're going to move through them. And so it is really important if you as parents are coming in with that. And, most of us to some degree have some work to do with emotional regulation or expression based on our own past histories. But it's even more important now for that growth, for your self-care as parents, but to be able to be there for your children. A lot of opportunities for modeling, right?
Yeah. And, I'm noticing that somebody put a question on our Facebook feed that makes a lot of sense and really is appropriate to talk about right now. And that is, how do you know when emotions that kids are expressing are normal, quote unquote, normal or typical, and what are problematic? Because again, like, you may be seeing things at home that are totally a part of normal development. For example, you may have a teenager who is spending a lot of time in their room, and they're really kind of isolating from the family. And you wouldn't normally notice this as much because normally 8 hours of the day they're somewhere else. But you're just noticing that they're in their rooms more often. So in general, developmentally, that's not a problem. Isolation is part of individuation as teenagers learn to sort of separate from their parents. But if we start to see an inordinate amount of time, an inability to connect at all with the family, a real deep sort of sadness that sort of pervades the teenager, kind of just like this low energy. Certainly if you see, teenagers' grades going down, or them having difficulty even interacting by text with their peers, some of those things are things to consider. If you see significant changes in their eating patterns, or you notice that they're, just isolating themselves even more than what seems normal. Those are some of the kind of things that we look at for teens. And, for kids, we're seeing some of the same stuff. I mean, a lot of kids actually are doing well during the pandemic with online learning because they don't have the transition from class to class, or they don't have the sensory overload of all the kids around them.
Mm-hmm.
But most kids are not really thriving during this experience. And so, we're kind of looking for kids that seem like it's not really a great fit for them, that they need more interaction with the outside world, or that they are feeling like they can't do the things that they are being asked to do, or that they're not connecting with their peers. And we try to help them around some of those things, talking about what's temporary and what might be something that we need to work on long term, and figure out creative ways around some of those problems.
Yeah, Amy, great. Let me piggyback on the social skills, because I have heard a lot of people, as we know, we're really skilled at being fearful about the future. So a lot of people are really worried about, is their children, are they going to be behind with their social skills, with their development? Are they going to regress? What do you have to say to that, to those parents who are worrying about
Well,
that?
I have to I kind of actually giggle when people say that. So yes, yes, and yes. I mean, okay, yes, probably, maybe all of these things will happen. We have no research that shows what our children will or will not be able to accomplish during a worldwide pandemic.
Hmm.
So we just don't know. Um, and at the same time, I'll say that sure, when kids aren't in their regular environment and they lack the typical structure that they're accustomed to, they're not surrounded by their peers, they don't have the opportunity to be in close proximity to the supportive adults that they're used to. Those are all things that could be problematic. And on the other hand, let me say that no children are doomed. Our families are not doomed. This is not a permanent situation. We know it's been long term, and it will probably continue for a while, and that's really sad and scary. And it doesn't mean that your child is not going to progress to the next grade level, that they're not going to ever go on a date, that they're not going to make it to college, that they're not going to be successful in life. It doesn't become this sort of, we're not setting ourselves up for the wreckage of the future. We need to just be clear that right now we're doing the very best we can. And we can always do better, but we're also doing the very best we can. And
Yeah.
so again, like the whole idea, like I hear a lot of parents, oh my gosh, my child is not going to be reading at the second grade level in reading. And I'm like, well, who actually made the second grade level in reading anyway? Like, who cares? Are you reading with your kids? Are they nice? Are they kind? Do they have good
Yeah.
character? Because at the end of the day, the thing that matters the most is not paying your full attention to your children's behaviors, but to the quality of their character.
Mm.
And so that's something that no pandemic can take away.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Um, I just want to highlight like a point that you said also about like just stepping back to see the bigger picture of that, like, this too shall pass, even though it feels like it's not going to, but we know that everything keeps moving. And in fact, everything keeps changing. And I love that. Did you ever hear that metaphor about like how the waves of life keep coming, and sort of Buddhist, right? And they're positive waves, happy waves, anxious waves, sad waves, right? But they just keep coming, right? We have life experiences, all types. And while we can't stop the waves from coming, we can learn to surf them better. And I think that's important because a lot of people love control. Especially, I think many of us in the DC area pride ourselves on a lot of control and having schedule. And that's been really hard for people because everything as we know and the way in which we know it has changed, right? So it's required a lot of adjustment. And so with the social skills, I think you said something to me the other day also is that, parents, like just by their interactions with their children, are rehearsing social skills on a daily basis and modeling. So I think the importance I want to say is always coming back to like what we can control, even though we are going to focus on sometimes get lost in that fear of the future, but back to what we can control on a daily basis. And also, giving yourself credit, because I guarantee most people are doing better with dealing with COVID-19 than they were 6 months ago.
Sure.
Got some experience under your belt now.
Right. Right. And somebody was asking the question, could this COVID anxiety that we're all feeling, and really, I haven't mentioned it, but I know you and I have talked about this at length, Lauren, and the idea is that really everyone is experiencing this sort of like low hum. When you're standing in
Mm-hmm.
your refrigerator, in your kitchen, and in your refrigerator, when you're standing in your kitchen and you hear that refrigerator sort of in the background,
Mm-hmm.
that's how we're all feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is feeling this low hum of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
even more today probably than last week because of the election. But so that COVID anxiety, that's kind of what I sort of name as the COVID anxiety. That doesn't have to be a permanent part of how we cope with life. It will subside. Now, could it turn into something bigger? Could it sort of kick off more significant anxiety, especially in children? It's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. What I do know for sure, absolutely, is that parents can very positively influence the way children cope with anxiety by the way that they cope with anxiety, by
Mm-hmm.
mentoring and modeling good strategies, exercise, being outside, healthy eating, good sleep, um, a responsible schedule that doesn't look like dawn to middle of the night. All of those things. Number one, getting out in nature, because nature, our brains were designed to be
Mm-hmm.
in nature, to be outside. So the rhythm of everything that happens outside is the pace that our brains feel the most soothed. And so all of those things parents can do, and they can positively impact how kids cope with anxiety, and hopefully then create for the future less anxiety for kids because they're going to have these fantastic coping skills.
Right. Yeah, and I think introducing like the idea of like diversifying like what coping skills are too, it's not just about telling kids it'll be okay, it's about helping them learn how to regulate their emotions and soothe. And the way in which we soothe our emotions or to bring down anxiety or up to depression can vary person to person. But I really like that idea of multisensory experiences. But movement is really
Mhm.
important, as you mentioned. And I was listening to a podcast saying that some mom was like, "Well, I've got who's now functioning as a teacher, as we know. This was not like what moms or dads were trained to do, and they're, I believe, having a lot more understanding and respect for teachers, which is good. But they were like, hey, no, it's not going according to schedule with my son. I've got all, like, he's rejecting the packet. He's getting frustrated. I'm getting frustrated. And she's like, I just was like, let's go out and play.
Yep.
Let's go outside and play. And she's
Beautiful.
like,
That is exactly what should happen. One of the things we know is motion changes emotion.
right.
So whenever we move, we change our emotions. And so if something's not working, regroup, go outside, go do something different, go get a drink of water, stop what you're doing, because forcing something that's not going to work is like forcing a round peg in a square hole, or whatever the saying is, square peg in round hole.
Yeah.
Regardless, you can't force it. So the more you force it, especially as a parent trying to be the teacher, it makes it a lot harder to be the parent at the end of the day, because you
Mm-hmm.
are the taskmaster as the teacher all day, and then you're trying to be this nurturing, loving parent at night. It's a hard duality.
Mm.
And so I love that. I would absolutely 100% support stop, go outside, go play.
Yeah, and I think parents are learning, and I hope they're learning to give themselves permission that they don't need to, again, be perfect at everything or know, like, their child's emotional well-being is what's number one, and them too. So if that doesn't look like 6 hours of sitting down in front of, Skype, learning
For
is
any of us.
learning,
For any of us.
right?
Right.
Yeah, so learning is learning. And, I think there's often a distorted belief if I'm not doing something, it's unproductive, or if I'm just sitting on the couch. We need time for our brains to be in default mode. Our frontal lobes, and you're the brain science expert, but, our activation, planning, focus, all of that attention, problem solving, that's like a very active way of being. So sometimes we need our exercise and meditation or just being to just have time to calm that limbic system and just give the brain a break, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michelle talked about self-regulation and helping kids to self-regulate, and that's about, again, about modeling too. But I really years ago, and I really probably need to put it out there again because I thought I wrote a pretty good article, I thought, which is really about kids being bored.
Mm.
And that, we used to have a thing in our family that if you said the word bored, then you couldn't do the next fun thing. Like we would just be like, if they said, "Oh, I'm bored," we'd be like, "Oh, well, then you can't go do the next fun thing with us," because I was just like, bored is not a word. If you're
Mm-hmm.
bored, that means you're just too lazy to figure out something to do with yourself. And so the whole idea of, kids need to be bored. They don't need to say that they're bored, but they need to be bored to figure out what to do to take care of themselves, to take care of their space, or to self-soothe, or to give themselves some creative time. I mean, boredom is a gift. And it's kind of interesting. I think a lot of COVID has given us some time to be bored and
Mm-hmm.
some time to realize that this slowing down has actually been,
Mm.
in some ways, really beautiful for a lot of families.
Yeah, the theme that keeps coming up, these two words for me this week in conversations is like grief and gratitude.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We've talked a lot about grief. There is a lot of grief of loss of way is, but there's a lot of gratitude for things and experiences, I think, and that's what I believe you're hitting on, of opportunities for connection, for love, for learning. Feel free to
Yeah.
add some more
Yeah,
in.
absolutely. I mean, just like and I know we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but we're doing this dinner
Mm-hmm.
challenge in November. And it was funny because when I was writing the copy from it, we've been doing it for the last 3 years. I was writing the copy of it for 2020. And in the past, it said, we're so busy taking our kids to sports and being in clubs and involved in school and after school activities. And we're doing so many things with our children out of the house that we have no time for family meals. And I was like, okay, well, 2020 is not at all like that. And what I ended up writing was, well, now we have a lot of time for family meals. Our dishwashers have never run more than they've run
Yeah.
before. I'm so tired of making food. I don't even sit at the table with my family anymore. We just watch in front of the TV because we're sick of each other. And so we've gone,
Yeah.
the pendulum has swung from like too busy to have family dinners to too sick of each other to have family
Yeah,
dinners.
yeah,
And
that
we need
makes
to
sense.
find that middle ground.
I love that. So tell us about this family challenge. What's your
Well,
intention?
it's funny. I was thinking about it today to try to make it sound super compelling, but really the fact of the matter is that we as a staff realized that November gives us a perfect opportunity to have a free family dinner, because Thanksgiving is almost always an opportunity for families to sit down together for a meal. And so we thought, well, let's spend November encouraging families every day for 30 days, to eat together, to talk together, and to spend time together. And so we send you like fun, friendly family recipes, just a few to kind of get you cooking together. We send you really cool talking points about conversation starters with your family and ways to get have those hard conversations that Michelle is talking about. And then we give you opportunities to connect on a deeper level, on a more emotional level, really helping to hear each other and
Mm-hmm.
helping to teach listening and empathy skills. So, and so we just basically ask people to join us, and we have a Facebook group, and we just try to share information so that we can get more people at the table. And that's really what it's about. And so, like I said, originally it was like no one sat at the table, and now no one wants to sit at the table again because of this. So we need to find that. I'm hoping to bring everyone to the middle ground.
Yeah, I love that. And, I hope that people check out your website because you are always doing innovative things. You're great with your social media and putting out tips and all types of information, but also your groups. I know that you run social skills groups for children. Even though people are zoomed out, you're like, it's still
Yeah, we were
important.
hoping. I mean, we're running some really great
Yeah.
groups for kids, an LGBTQ group for
Mm-hmm.
teens, some other teen groups, and they're all virtual. So to some extent, like we thought, oh, this is a perfect time to run groups, but everyone is very zoomed out. So we totally get that. And at the same time, what a perfect opportunity to let your kid have a chance to interact with people they don't normally interact with or don't know, to build those social skill opportunities. So we have the information on our website, which is thewisefamily.com, and we love doing groups. So what we really want to do is become a place when people are looking for social skill groups and support groups for their kids, a place that people go to in addition to our regular individual counseling, and we also do psychoeducational testing. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we really just want to be what we really want to emphasize regarding mental health. And I know that this is your philosophy too, Lauren, and that is that mental wellness is absolutely 100% equal to physical wellness. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we do as a society is we pay way more attention to our physical well-being and our physical bodies than we do to our emotional and mental health. And so for kids, we want to be like the Wise family wants to be like the pediatrician to the brain, like the brain doctor, that when you take your kids for a yearly checkup with your pediatrician, that you also take them for a yearly checkup with us. So we can talk about
Yeah.
their mental health, talk about their social well-being, talk about their relationships, talk about their communication skills, resilience, emotional regulation, all that stuff. In the context of a really fun play hour where we really kind of get to know your kid, and we become a place where you can come back to again and again because we know you and we know
Yeah.
your family, and we're part of, we're a team. So our family, the
Mm-hmm.
Wise family, becomes part of your family.
Yep. I love that. So people could just come in if they want a little tune-up too.
Exactly, which
Yeah.
does happen.
Well,
So yeah.
I know that we tend to think a lot of like and trying to really destigmatize mental illness, and that you don't need to come in with thinking everything is pathological or you're broken. We don't see people like that. We see them as whole and having resources within them, but we get disconnected from ourselves for different reasons, and that's why we have different, emotional disorders. Or kids are struggling with frustration. You don't know, is that an emotional thing? Is it a learning disorder? Is it, ADD?
Yeah.
So, you don't need to know all the answers. And this was Amy said this to me. She's like, remember, this is where you resource people, and we are experts in our field. And so, Amy, what's important probably for people to know is that they can reach out to you, right? And
Yeah. I mean, like, so when you have something wrong with you break your leg, you don't try to fix it yourself. When you get get a flat tire, you probably don't fix it yourself, or you get a nail in your tire, you don't sit there and try to take it out. You get an expert. And, when you're struggling with something in your family or with your kids, or your teen is suffering in some way, get an expert. And, people can call us, they can make an appointment with me for free to talk for 15 minutes, several different days a week. Um, you can reach us really easily because during COVID, we set up the coolest thing. It's a chat. It's a way to connect with us by text. So you just text Wise Help, WISEHELP, Wise Help, to 66866, and you get connected right with us. I mean, you don't get therapy right away exactly, but we connect with you and we schedule something and we get you in right away. So that's been really amazing during COVID because there's just been lots of people who have just at the last minute thought, I really need help, and reached out, and we were really able to help them pretty quickly. But yeah, when you don't know if it's normal or if this is typical or if it's developmental issue or if there's something really wrong, talk to us, because that's what we do. That's all we do. And we're really good at it. So we really like to be able to help.
yeah. And, I think it's really important, just circling back, I know we're about to finish, but about the importance of keeping an eye on some of the more serious issues.
Yeah.
And I say that, and serious to us is when there's risk of harm to self
Right.
or others. And you have mentioned that you're seeing a rise in eating disorder. We're seeing a rise in substance abuse across the board, more vulnerable to depression and suicide. So in those situations, and I think it's really important to say because, when people are calling us right now at Delray Psych and Wellness, we have a 4-month wait list. And that is, unfortunately a sign of the times. But we don't want people sitting on that list if they're having suicidal ideation or they are at risk to themselves. So if, talk to me a little bit about how you help in that process if parents are seeing more extreme behaviors, and like what advice you would give them or where they should go if you're not a crisis center.
Yeah, absolutely. So we We don't have a waiting list right now. We keep adding clinicians to our practice. So we try to see all the kids that we possibly can. We're seeing a few kids in person. We're seeing most of our kids online. But when people call us and they are in crisis, because we are in a crisis center, we have a really close relationship with Dominion Hospital, they have a 24-hour a day admitting and referral service, which you can call and ask them any question you want. You can certainly always call the suicide hotline. I would also in Alexandria totally encourage you to call 911 if you're really concerned, because we have a very strong support system and support network in the city of Alexandria around mental health and emergency. And our police force is very well trained in dealing with mental health related issues. So I would not ever be afraid to reach out to those kind of helpers, those kind of supports, because in our area, we're very fortunate to have a really solid foundation of people who know what they're. All of our Alexandria police officers are trained in mental health first aid. I mean, that's a big deal. And to know those kinds of things and to have those resources is a big deal. So they can reach us and we can help them figure out those resources. Or again, like call 911, call the Dominion Hospital, call the suicide hotline, and use those resources. And I'm seeing a couple people are writing. So Alicia, our close friend Lauren,
I was
wrote
going to give her a shout out.
the text help, wise help, and it's to 66866. 66866. Just kind of wanted to clarify that. And our offices are in Alexandria, Arlington, and Winchester.
I love that Alicia is helping you
She's
with your.
our great extra helper. So we love Alicia of Healthy Minds Therapy. So I'm sure she'll be a guest in the future. And someone put out, are there books you recommend? Yeah, you know what? Listen, you can read all the books, and I've, trust me, read all the books. And you can read all the magazines, and you can listen to all the podcasts, and all of that can be really, really helpful. And at the end of the day, the best thing you can do for your family is to find someone you really like and know and trust, that can get to know your family and can really support you independently and individually one-on-one. But if you can't do that, of course, there are some great books out there. I don't have any specific off the top of my head, but you can certainly also get on our newsletter. We try to curate some of that information just like Michelle does. So both of us are great resources for that. And anytime, I'm always happy. I'm right here. So I'm always happy to be supportive.
Thank you for that information. And on your website and also ours at Delray Psych and Wellness, we both have listed of resources, crisis lines, books. And Alicia Burant of Healthy Minds is another big group practice that sees children and families. And I try to keep tabs with the other psychologists, therapists in the area to see who's open. We try to help the best we can to say, hey, they're accepting people, they aren't. But just remember that there are options since we're doing virtual, that people can find people out of the area. Don't wait 3 or 4 months. But it's great that we now know that Amy is definitely accepting people, and you're also seeing a limited amount of people in person, right? Because for some children it's really important. COVID safe.
And one age group I'll just mention really quick that we didn't talk about, and then I know we have to jump off, but is our college students. College students are really having a tough time right now, more than ever. And so we do a lot of virtual work with college students who are really struggling. So if you have a kid in college, don't wait to help get them some support, just to sort of help them step through some of this that they're experiencing too.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for imparting your wise wisdom.
Thank you.
For the community. Really appreciate all of your words, your wisdom, your friendship, your, everything. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on your exciting new show. And I'm looking forward to many, many more episodes in the future.
Okay. Take care, Amy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, oops, wait, I got to first say, tune back in 2 weeks. We're going to have a nurse practitioner who's going to talk about integrative medicine and vampire facials. It'll be a little later. But anyway, don't forget to be the good news in someone's life. See ya.